What if the neighborhood enforcer you feared most stood between your dying child and her only chance at life? How heartless does someone have to be to rip life-saving oxygen from a little girl's hands over aesthetic violations? And what delicious justice awaits when the bully who slandered you for years finally gets caught on camera destroying her own kingdom? In the sun-drenched cul-de-sacs of Willow Creek Estates, where every lawn was trimmed to HOA perfection and every mailbox screamed heritage beige, Ryan Ellis had learned to swallow his pride. For 2 long years Patricia Wilkins, Pat to her adoring board queen of the clipboard, had branded him the troublemaker single dad. It started when he dared question a $300 fine for his mailbox shade being non-conforming. Then came the passive-aggressive newsletter blast calling him that resident who doesn't value community harmony, complete with side-eye photos of Sophie's toys left out after his wife's funeral. Whispers in the group chat labeled him neglectful, disruptive, the guy lowering property values for everyone. Ryan paid the fines. He stayed silent. But every meeting he slipped his phone into record mode, building a secret folder of her vote rigging, her selective enforcement, her pearl necklace smiles hiding pure venom.
He watched.
That morning the air felt heavy with dread and fragile hope. 7-year-old Sophie, her tiny chest rising and falling like a broken bellows, was finally headed for the surgery that could let her breathe normally again. Congenital respiratory failure had turned their home into a medical battlefield. Nights of monitors beeping, insurance wars, prayers whispered into the dark. Ryan hadn't slept in a week. His sister Lauren had flown in to help. The ambulance idled in the driveway, lights flashing softly, paramedics loading the portable oxygen setup. Sophie coughed weakly from her bed, her small hand clutching her stuffed bunny. Then the silver SUV screeched up like a bad omen. Pat stepped out in her pastel cardigan and power pearls, clipboard raised like a sword, 2 nervous board members trailing behind. "Ryan, darling," she cooed, voice dripping fake concern. "We have a serious issue here. Section 4.2 of the Covenant strictly prohibits unapproved emergency vehicles. Your driveway is blocking the official HOA access route for maintenance crews. And parking without 48-hour written notice? That's a clear aesthetic violation." Ryan's stomach dropped. "Pat, this is a medical emergency. My daughter is struggling to breathe. The ambulance is here to save her life. Step aside." Pat crossed her arms, smile never cracking. "Rules aren't suggestions, Ryan. If we allow every little crisis to park wherever it pleases, our neighborhood will look like chaos. Property values will tank. We have standards for a reason." The black humor hit like a slap, the woman preaching for the children, while one fought for air right behind her. Lauren rushed out, eyes red. "Sophie can't wait. She's getting worse by the minute." The lead paramedic leaned out the window, voice tight. "Ma'am, move or we're calling law enforcement. This is obstruction of emergency services." Pat scoffed, chin high. "The authority in Willow Creek. HOA regulations supersede your so-called emergencies." Then the nurse emerged with the extra oxygen lines and monitors. Pat's eyes narrowed at the clutter. In one swift, insane motion she lunged and grabbed the main oxygen tube right out of the nurse's grip. You cannot deploy medical devices on HOA-governed property without approval. That's visual pollution and a safety hazard under Section 7.3. The nurse gasped. Sophie's cough turned into desperate wheezing. Ryan stepped forward, voice low but steel-edged, phone already recording in his pocket. "Pat, you just tampered with life support equipment during a critical response. Back off." She pointed a manicured finger, still clutching the tube like a trophy. "You're the violator here, Ryan. And recommend expulsion proceedings. Rules protect us all." The irony burned, rules that could kill a kid while she posed as savior. But she didn't notice the ambulance dashcam rolling, the paramedics' body cams capturing every pearl-clutching second, or Ryan's silent phone feeding the growing evidence pile he'd been building for years. Adrenaline surged. "Ignore her." They pushed past, loaded Sophie onto the stretcher, slammed the doors. Sirens wailed as the ambulance peeled away, leaving Pat fuming on the curb, phone out snapping evidence photos and ranting about property damage. Ryan climbed in beside Sophie, heart pounding, whispering, "Hang on, baby. Daddy's got this." He didn't yell. He didn't swing. Because every second of her lunacy was now ironclad proof. At the hospital, the ER team swarmed. "Dear." Sharp-eyed and no-nonsense, examined Sophie, then turned to Ryan after the initial stabilization. "The external monitor line was yanked? That's tampering with medical equipment in an active emergency. That's felony territory." Ryan laid it out calmly, the blockade, the grab, the exact words. The doctor's face hardened like stone. "She did what?" He picked up the phone. "Security. Now." Within minutes, 2 officers arrived. Officer Jenkins reviewed the dashcam footage on the spot, jaw tight. "This is textbook obstruction and endangerment of a minor. We'll be visiting Mrs." Ryan exhaled, the first real breath in hours. Lauren squeezed his hand. But Pat had no clue the storm she'd unleashed was just starting. The video wasn't public yet, but it was coming. And Ryan's secret folder? It was about to become a nuke. The next morning, the hospital room felt strangely peaceful, Sophie's chest rising steadily under the monitors, her little hand warm in Ryan's. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. "Ryan, it's everywhere." She turned the screen. There was the thumbnail. Pat in all her pearl glory, yanking the oxygen line like it was a garden hose, her mouth open mid-lecture while Sophie's weak cries played in the background. Title: HOA President Endangers Dying Child Over Aesthetic Rules, Caught on Camera. 2 million views in 12 hours. Hashtags exploded. Justice for Sophie, Chung to Hoa Karen clipboard. Comments poured in like gasoline on fire. "This woman is pure evil. How does anyone defend property values over a kid's life? Arrest her yesterday." Local news vans parked outside the hospital by noon. National outlets picked it up. Reporters shouted questions at the gates. Ryan stayed quiet. He'd learned that from 2 years of Pat's games, but he anonymously dropped the rest of his secret folder to a trusted journalist. Years of her rigged votes, selective fines on single parents, the time she fined a veteran for a flag too large. The full picture painted Pat not as a quirky rule stickler but a power-drunk tyrant who'd finally gone too far. Officer Jenkins returned, uniform crisp, smile grim. "Mr. Wilkins is in custody. Obstruction of emergency medical services, endangerment of a minor, interference with responders. The footage is airtight, dashcam, bodycam, your phone. She's looking at real jail time." Ryan felt the satisfaction bloom, slow and sweet, like the first real laugh after months of holding his breath. Pat had spent years making him the villain. Now the whole country saw her as the monster. By evening, the backlash tsunami hit Willow Creek. Protesters gathered outside Pat's perfect McMansion with signs. "Rules don't trump lives," and Hoa Karen equals child endangerer. Neighbors who'd stayed silent for years turned. The board called an emergency meeting without her. Former victims came forward, echoing Ryan's secret recordings. Pat posted a teary video trying to spin it. "I was only enforcing covenants for everyone's safety." The comments roasted her alive. "Safety? You nearly killed a little girl." Her real estate license got suspended the same day. The board voted her out in a landslide. Ryan sat by Sophie's bed, watching her sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks. "Dear." And smiling. "Vitals are strong. Expected. We can talk discharge in a couple days." The weight lifted. But the story wasn't over. A producer from a national morning show. "Your case is sparking a conversation about HOA abuse. Will you go public?" He thought of every family Pat had bullied, every kid who'd suffered under her standards. "Yes," he said. "Let's end this." The interview hit like a bomb. Just cold facts. All we wanted was to save our daughter. Instead, we were blocked by someone who thought clipboard rules mattered more than a child's life. Clips went mega viral, tens of millions. Talk shows debated. The county opened an investigation into the entire board. Pat's world imploded. Bail granted but house surrounded by cameras, neighbors shunning her, her friends on the board throwing her under the bus to save themselves. 2 weeks later, Ryan pulled into the driveway, the same one where it all started. Neighbors lined the street with flowers and "Welcome Home Sophie" signs. The nurse who'd been grabbed by Pat was there, hugging Lauren. "The whole community is behind you now." Even the board had voted to dissolve the HOA entirely. Turns out most residents were done with the tyranny. Officer Jenkins stopped by later with a grin. District attorney filed a permanent injunction. Pat can never hold any leadership position again. Her empire? Ryan sat on the porch that evening, Sophie curled in his lap, breathing easy under the golden sunset. Lauren handed him coffee. "Just like you planned." He nodded. The cicadas hummed. Felt free. No more fear of clipboards. A month later, the letter arrived from a D.C. law firm. Reform HOA Power National Campaign. They wanted Ryan to testify before Congress. He read it twice, then showed Lauren. "This isn't just our story anymore." When he stood at that podium, cameras flashing, he kept it simple. Unchecked power turns neighbors into tyrants. Rules should protect lives, not destroy them. The applause thundered. Sophie ran into his arms when he got home, laughing full and strong. Pat may have started the war with her rules and her arrogance, but it ended with a little girl's heartbeat, steady, unbreakable, louder than any HOA decree ever could. In the end, the real lesson isn't just that karma eventually catches the clipboard queens. It's that quiet patience and cold, hard evidence will always beat loud entitlement. Next time your HOA Karen comes for you, smile, record, and let her bury herself. Compassion always outlives control.